Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending today. My name is Joel Pingel, and I'm a leader in our Google Public Sector division of Google Cloud, so thanks for attending. And today I am blessed to have a distinguished panel with me here on stage. And before we introduce them, I do want to walk through a few logistics for what we're going to cover today. So this session is about language, artificial intelligence, and resident services. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through a journey with our three panelists on three different areas. One, we're going to talk about leadership and strategy. Two, we're going to talk about the partnerships and ecosystems which fuel that strategy. And three, we're going to talk about the future of AI and what that means for resident services. And then at the end, we will have time permitting, depending on how long we talk up here. And we all like to talk a lot. This is a very passionate and energetic group, so I'm just warning you, we may run out of time for Q&A. And if that does happen, we'll be available off stage to take any questions that you have. And I'll be available all day and the rest of my career, because that's my job to take questions from you all. So please come to us with questions. All right, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to introduce the panel, and then we're going to talk about our personal path of AI. So first, we have Karen Johnson, who is part of Covered California. She's the Executive Deputy Director there. And we have Mayor Abdullah, Hammoud, the Mayor of Dearborn, Michigan. And we have Secretary Amy Pechacek of the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. So if you could all welcome the panel. Thanks for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. And so what we're going to do is every journey of AI really starts with your personal experience with AI. We all use it in our personal life, and then we take that personal experience to work with us. So my personal story, to get us kicked off, is I was talking to my 12-year-old daughter and my 9-year-old son about moderating a panel. And my daughter looks at me and she says, "Dad, why would they have you moderate a panel? Shouldn't Taylor Swift be the one moderating a panel?" And I thought to myself for a second, I'm like, well, probably a good point, but this is what the group gets. They get me. So with that, we are all feeling 22, and we are ready for it, because we went to Gemini and asked what Taylor Swift would say when she was on stage. So Karen, with you, how did your kind of personal journey start with artificial intelligence?
So I will tell you that I use it all the time. And personal, I am traveling over to Istanbul, Turkey, and over to Greece, and so trying to do some research about, places to visit, places to go. And I'm only in Istanbul for about 4 days. And so I wanted to put together a really busy, hectic kind of schedule, 4 days, so that I would see all the sites. And through Gemini, I was able to load it up, and it actually had pictures and everything for me to go and explore, but it put together the 4-day itinerary for me. But work, we use it all the time, just help with writing prompts or improve upon, taking a budget document that is actually, 4 pages, 5 pages long, condense it, to a page. So it's really, I think, making a difference in the workplace.
That's great. Mayor, your personal story.
When AI first emerged with the LLMs, I pulled all my directors into a room and I said, look, you're all late on your reporting every single month. This will do it for you. And I put it up on the screen, and nobody could believe that all you had to do is put in the prompt and it would type out the report that we were asking for each and every single month, as long as they provided it some of the basic information. And it transformed, I think, the way that, at least the culture that we began to build in the city on utilizing AI. We obviously have Google Duet rolled out across all our high performers across the entirety of the city, and several other AI functionality across various products that we have now, but we've come so far in just 1 year.
That's great. Amy, how about your personal journey?
So I fancy myself a bit of a writer when I'm not working, and I have asked Gemini to write me some mystery novel plots and some summaries, and really kind of give me an outline and a structure. And in honor of this conference, I actually asked Gemini to write us a little poem. And, she did a great job. So I am going to read it, and I brought my readers. Here we go. In Vegas, where lights gleam so bright, Google hosted a conference, a true delight. AI in the public sector, the theme of the day, bringing nerds together to learn and play.
We got some applause on that.
Yes. I laughed out loud when she spit this out, and I was like, shots fired, girl. On the strip where dreams take flight, techies gathered, ready to ignite. With algorithms and data to analyze, they aim to make government wise. And amidst the sessions and chatter, some got distracted by the glitz and the glamour. For on the strip, temptations are vast, and staying focused may not always last. But as Google's conference came to a close, attendees left with great knowledge, that much shows, and also with memories of Vegas's grand sight, along with the wisdom to use AI right.
All right.
Woo. That was all her. I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Well, now that, and I hope all of you have some personal experiences you're thinking about in your head with Gemini specifically. So with that, let's move into taking that personal experience and what that means with the leadership and strategy that this panel uses, and then we want you all to be thinking about the leadership and strategy that you're employing or thinking about employing as you're going through your journey. So, Mayor, your journey with artificial intelligence. Talk to us about the decision-making process, especially for resident services and the language accessibility that's important in Dearborn. Talk to us about how you got started.
Well, firstly, as a city, it was the most government-rich time in history with all the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. And for us, when we came in, we understood that our employees were still using green screens and blue screens, and there was no essence of technology or innovation across the entirety of the city of Dearborn. Permitting is actually done by paper still in the city of Dearborn. You have to submit a hard copy paper, only in English, submit it regardless of any language barriers that you have. And so when we embarked on the journey, we said, where can we transform the way that we do business with residents, utilizing the technology and innovation that's available? And we want to do it in a way where we're no longer lagging the private sector. In fact, we want the public sector to lead, and so that we're not falling behind every 10 to 20 years and then having to invest $10 to $15 million just to catch up again. And so right now, for example, we launched Wasta. Wasta is our chatbot on our website. Wasta translates in Arabic to being your inside connect. Everybody always said it feels like you need a Wasta or inside connect to get something done at City Hall. You might all feel this way. So we created Wasta. Wasta is everybody's personal inside connect. And it translates in multiple languages. It's programmed now to answer 15 questions. We're incorporating AI technology over the next 4 months. It'll be able to digest our whole code of ordinances or anything that you need as a resident or as a business to understand what's happening in Dearborn, but also has the fluidity to ensure that there are certain questions you never want AI to have the vast knowledge of the internet to respond. So if you're asking, are taxes high in Dearborn, I never wanted to say yes. It's always going to say no, and we have that flexibility. Secondly, we have the translation hub. So for us, translating material into the Arabic language, given we're the home to the largest concentration of Arab Americans in the country, was extremely important and never available prior to today. So our translation hub can now translate every single document in current format over to the language of choice. We're taking it a next step over these next 4 months, and we have the editing capability where we're going to take the translation that we prefer of the Arabic that we understand best, better than any translation model out there, and we're going to train the system to spit out our Arabic translation on a variety of terms and phrases, so that's there each and every single time. And so there's several ways that we've been incorporating AI, and hopefully it's just the beginning.
Yeah, that's great. And that kind of passion for the language accessibility is so evident. So
absolutely.
Thank you for that. Karen, now part of leadership and strategy in artificial intelligence is the return on investment that comes from that. So could you talk to us about how you're looking at the return on investment for artificial intelligence at Covered California?
Absolutely. So we have implemented a tool that is actually going to accept documents and be able to verify identity as well as income in order for us to process the application. One of the ways that we would measure return on investment would actually be the speed of how we're processing the application for health insurance enrollment in some of our plans. And the other thing is having real-time verification and acceptance of that document, and being able to communicate that back to the consumer who's actually applying for the insurance, so they're not having to wait, for a response or having to wait days. It's now happening in a matter of seconds. So looking at the speed processing times. The other thing that we're looking at is the manual workload that we had previously, and then after we implement the technology, is doing the comparison between the two to see how much manual workload is still having to be processed as a result. But I think we're going to be seeing huge benefits. I'm saying close to 100%, 98%. I have my team sitting right up here, but I think we'll get there. So I'm really excited about the journey that we're on for this transformation.
That's great. We're hearing a theme: manual processes becoming automated.
Yes.
That's great. All right, Secretary Pechacek,
Yes.
your journey in artificial intelligence.
So,
I don't even have to ask you a question.
I know, I'm
You're
just
going to
ready.
go. It's great.
It's a great story. And in order to fully appreciate the journey of how Wisconsin used AI, we have to go back in time, because this was 4 years ago during the pandemic. Before AI was sort of the talk of the daily, everything to do with tech. It's before Gemini, before all of the focus that we have today on AI, and this was back during the pandemic. I got a call from the governor in September of 2020, so 6 months in, and at that time I had been working for the Department of Corrections, and our great esteemed governor in the state of Wisconsin, Governor Tony Evers, said, "Hey Amy, can you come over to the Department of Workforce Development? And they're having some issues with their unemployment insurance claims." So I think you all remember with the mass shutdowns, there was an explosion of UI claims across the country. And in Wisconsin in particular, we had a 225,000% increase in claims beginning in March of 2020. And what had happened was those claims continued to build, and the prior secretary kind of threw his hands up and left, and so I came in and quickly did an assessment, and I found that Wisconsin, as of September of 2020, had 770,000 claims sitting in a backlog. And at that point, they had already tripled their staff to try and work through these claims. And really, I want you to take a moment to remember what this was like 4 years ago. There was sort of panic in the air. People still weren't sure, how long this pandemic was going to go on. And truly, unemployment at that point was a lifeline for folks, a way to put food on their table, a way to, keep a roof over their head. And lots of folks didn't have any income at all. And what I found when I looked at the system that the unemployment team was using to try and administer the benefits, Wisconsin, and this is just 4 years ago, was using a Nixon-era 1970s COBOL mainframe computer system, which was later going to be used to administer $7 billion worth of benefits for the unemployment in Wisconsin. And I am talking the black screen with the green blinky cursor, like the block where you press the F keys to get between the screen. I called the governor and I'm like, "Are you sitting down? Because you might fall over." And the other wild thing was that if individuals needed to send verification documents to our unemployment teams to prove that they qualified for the benefits, they had two choices to do that. They could either mail those documents, like with a stamp, or they could fax them. This is just 4 years ago. So in the basement of our Department of Labor building, there was a literal mountain of paper, a mountain that people were manually taking pieces of paper off and doing this manual data entry. And I'm like, we will be administering these claims and trying to get these benefits out for years if we do this. So I actually called Joel and I said, "Hey, we need a technology solution. Do you think Google could build us an artificially intelligent super adjudicator that could teach itself the rules of the unemployment system in the state of Wisconsin and tell me which of these 770,000 claims that I can pay? And he's like, totally, sure. And actually, the joke is that it literally took us longer to get a contract signed than it did for Google to build this AI that taught itself all of the rules of eligibility by ingesting 4 million previously fully adjudicated claims. We called her Judy, the super adjudicator, to make her less scary because people were afraid. And literally overnight, Judy told us who to pay and who she didn't think was eligible, and that was the pile of claims we sent to our humans. And we cleared that backlog in a matter of weeks. And since then, we've partnered with Google in terms of trying to update, obviously get off the mainframe. So we are now halfway through a full modernization project, but we have been able to incorporate AI in several key places throughout our modernization. We have the doc upload with the AI that pulls off the data. We have chatbots, we have virtual agents. Much like the city of Dearborn, we have a chatbot that is very representative of the state of Wisconsin, where our flagship industry is agriculture. So we have Maddie Moo, and she is a cow. We call her our sublime bovine, and she is very smart, and she can answer hundreds of questions, but we're actually in the process of giving her a brain boost to make her more generative. And we are also limiting the areas of which Maddie can pull her information so that she gives accurate details to folks. So it's been a huge success, and I will say now, you no longer have to mail or fax documents to us, although you still can. We want to be as accessible as possible, but you can now just take photos of your documents, upload them, and it's been wonderful.
That's great. And I know we all at Google are glad we helped the governor not fall over during that whole process. That's great. Okay, so now that you've heard a little bit about the start of the journey with leadership and strategy, we're going to move into talking about partnerships and ecosystems and how important those are to drive that strategy. So Karen, starting with you, can you just talk about how the collaboration with your partners, internal and external, has helped push your strategy?
Absolutely. So collaboration is really important but essential for successful implementation of any AI tool. And so at Covered California, we have partnered with Google as well as with the help of our Deloitte systems integrator team has been helping to bring solutions to the table to kind of explore use cases. So the thing that we have in terms of the public sector is when you partner with these individuals, we have the Google experience, we have the architects, the engineers that are brought forth to the table. So we're actually able to leverage that experience so that they can deliver solutions that really meets the unique needs of our populations that we serve. So
that's great. And I know you're working on some call center updates as well. Can you talk about the partnership and that
absolutely.
piece as well?
So probably about 5-6 months ago, we did a proof of concept for our call center. We're really focused on AI kind of internal, what can we do for our employees to make it easy and more efficient for their services. And I have to say that during open enrollment season, we can take up calls anywhere between 20 to 25,000. And each agent, probably processes, the calls. Takes about average handling time is about 20 minutes. And so that's, kind of time consuming. And we could have over 1,000 agents, on the phone that in a particular day. So what we've done is real-time transcription between the agent and the consumer. And then also the call summarization. Each agent gets right now 4 minutes to actually document, kind of the transaction of what happened on the call. So if that's 20 minutes and just doing the math here, 25,000, calls coming in times, 20 minutes, that's about, close to 500,000. Minutes, and then if you take the 4 minutes, times in terms of savings, that's like 100,000 minutes in a given day. That equates to, roughly 1,600 hours or about 200 PYs. Imagine that those consumers can actually be served much faster, and so our delivery, I think, is definitely going to improve. The other thing I wanted to mention about the call center AI tool is the ability to have sentiment analysis. And with sentiment analysis, perhaps you would be able to you're the agent, you're able to have more empathetic and effective communications because it's giving you real-time feedback. In addition, you can also have the consumer in terms of the sentiment analysis and how they are perceiving the call just based on the information that they're sharing with us and making sure that their issues and stuff got resolved. So that's one of the ways that we're looking at how to implement call center technologies.
That's great. And it feels like all of those things you just told us are part of that return on investment
Exactly.
as well.
Exactly.
So, and you're rolling all of that into the overall strategy, correct?
That is absolutely.
That's great. Excellent. All right, Mayor. So we have, I think, a lot of government practitioners in the room, or maybe some that are aspiring to be. So a little bit of a different question than Karen, but what advice would you give to the people in the crowd or those watching the recording on how to partner, and internal and external, and just get that buy-in, right? Get everybody excited.
I think the unique thing, if you're seeking public office or in public office and trying to embark on this, if you're any part of any government agency, you have to create the value proposition to the residents and to the voting authority. We're a strong mayor system, but my council approves my budget. And so you best believe at the outset of a pandemic coming into office, I came in 2022, I said, hey, I want to spend $10 million on updating our IT. And they said, IT? It's not something that you put on, your mailer that you're going for re-election and say, I updated our IT infrastructure, I've migrated to the cloud, this is why you should support us. So you really have to create that value proposition and demonstrate both to the public and to the employees and what the value add is to the investment that you're trying to make. And so we work closely with our Google partners. We did educational sessions with our city council. We talked about it publicly, and continuously now we use our communications team to engage back with our residents about what is the value of the investment that we made. So you can physically see a chatbot. You can physically see when we move to online permitting system. We have a new website, obviously with one of the Google partners, App Innovation, coming online later this year. So there's a lot of the tools and functionality that the public will see, but there's a lot to it that they won't see. But when we speak to those metrics and saying, for example, our permitting process went from 10-day turnaround down to 4-day turnaround, that's an painful experience for all residents that they can now see. When they see our communication is now continuously bilingual, we now translate our ballots, we're actually saving tens of thousands of dollars using the translation hub and not having to hire formal translators to tell us how to translate in Arabic. And so those types of things we can begin to speak to as achievements, and it's extremely important that you do that. And the last piece of advice I'll also offer you is set aside an allocation each and every single year for innovation and technology. I'm probably going to we have an ERP system update that's coming up, another 18 months to accomplish that. But all in all, we're about $15 million over these last 2 years for a city of roughly 100,000 people. The goal is to then allocate each and every single year so that we stay up to date with the modernization that's happening, because we can't have another 2 decades go by. There's no new ARPA funds that are coming for us to say, hey, we need $15 million now to exit the current systems that we're using because this new technology has now emerged. And so we've been able to incorporate that. We're adding a $3 technology fee to just about every single thing coming across the city, pooling those dollars to make sure we continually invest and never fall behind. And lastly, and I firmly believe this, I think the public sector can lead in this space. I don't think we have to wait. Obviously, we're risk averse when you're in the public sector. You don't want to say you piloted the program and it never worked. Sometimes it's going to have to happen. It's okay as long as you're more successful than you are not. And so I think those are the pieces of advice I would offer you if you're in the public sector. There is risk to this, but there's so much to gain if you get it right. And when you have the backing of organizations that Google backs as well as Google itself, you should at least have that comfortability that the Google stamp is there. You're more than likely not going to fail.
That's great. And I'm glad you mentioned risk aversion, because we feel that all the time working with public sector. the $3 surcharge that you just mentioned. Did you get a lot of pushback on that? How did that all go down?
You know, having been a state legislator before and understanding how states operated, I sat on like the LARA budget, our regulatory agency. 100% of their fee schedule was to recoup 100% of their costs. And so we need to take that model also as a city, because we're not here to make a profit, we're just trying to recoup 100% of our costs. And a $3 fee, when you begin to insource the systems that you've outsourced for so long, is actually a savings for many residents, because we're using too many third parties to do all the transactions that we currently want to do. And so there actually is no pushback. They accepted it. Our council is 100% in support. And I don't think, I think it's only going to better us in the long run. I think that the value argument you have to make, though, is $10 million is a whole lot of new park systems that you can brandish on your campaign literature versus migration to the cloud, updated website, chat systems, and you have to make that value proposition clear to your council and to your residents about why this is equally as important.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And Amy, so moving into kind of what you've done in Wisconsin, I know there's a lot of rules, regulations, state legislature weighing in, and there's a lot of security when it comes to that. So talk to us about how you've worked through that in Wisconsin.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the Department of Workforce Development, we were really leading the way with the example I used before, the Judy project. And as part of our overall modernization to get off the mainframe, you know, we had to be the first agency to start to move to the cloud. And so there were lots of questions about data security, just about the effectiveness of even the Judy project. And I'm glad to say we've been audited every which way since Sunday, and Judy didn't make any mistakes. And we did partner with Google in terms of making sure our cloud was hard. Is that the security term that we used?
Hardened. I don't know.
There you go.
All the nerds are in the crowd.
I know. I'm
us.
Sorry. I really understand the words coming out of my own mouth, but we wanted to make sure that it was very secure. That was always a question. Of course, when people didn't understand the cloud and the AI, they always have that question. But regulation is really, really interesting. I think maybe you all have heard that all regulations and government rules are written in blood, and that typically is a reference to safety rules and regulations, right? But I think the concept applies even here. When we talk about regulations, it's usually a result of somebody who's been previously harmed by not having that regulation. And one of the very interesting things about unemployment administration at the federal government is and at the Department of Labor, they are the jurisdictional authority over how states administer these benefits. And there is a rule that states must use merit staff to administer unemployment, so civil service folks. Now, that was a result, I believe, of states previously trying to use a third-party administrator, you know, using a private sector corporation to administer public benefits, which they wanted to protect against. But now, in the wake of evolving technology, it actually means that I can't use Judy. Now, when we did use Judy to administer the benefits in 2020, they had waived all of the regulations. It was a global pandemic, it was an emergency. It was states do whatever you have to do to get this benefit to folks who need to feed their families, keep a roof over their head, and so all provisions were waived. And that is a very interesting sort of case study in innovation, because the laws and rules around eligibility in Wisconsin for UI have not changed. So Judy is as relevant today as she was 4 years ago, but I can't use her due to some of those regulations. So it's one of those things that we would just challenge government to find that balance. Again, we know that regulations have a purpose and a meaning to protect people, and I fully believe in that. But we also have to understand the world in which we live now. And I am not looking to outsource my team members. There is clearly a need to have everybody that currently works at the Department of Workforce Development, there's plenty of work for them to do. But when we look at things like the worker quantity challenge that not only Wisconsin, but the entire nation is facing in terms of not even having enough physical bodies to fill all of our positions. And again, Wisconsin's got record high job numbers, record low unemployment. I don't have enough people to keep our businesses fully staffed, moving at this historic economic performance. And that's, again, due to demographic trends that are decades in the making. Our baby boomers are retiring. We've had low birth rates. Not unique to Wisconsin. We've also had net zero to negative immigration in Wisconsin, so maybe that's because of the snow. But we really don't have enough people, and so I'm challenging our partners at the federal level, our partners at the local level, to really rethink some regulations, because we need to embrace innovation, and we truly need to embrace AI, not to replace people, but to augment the work that people are doing, so we can remain as effective and efficient, as we currently are going forward.
That's great. And a follow-up on that, Amy.
Yeah.
Do you ever see a world in Wisconsin where Judy comes back to life?
Potentially, again, it's very hard for businesses all over to recruit and retain talent. And so we know that businesses are looking at AI as a way to pivot from the worker quantity challenge and really harness the power of technology to move forward. So if there comes a day where I just cannot hire enough adjudicators to administer claims, of course that would take some regulation changes at the Department of Labor and some forward thinking in terms of just allowing states and governments to really embrace this technology. But Judy stands at the ready. She is willing and able to continue to help us. Hopefully we never find ourselves with a 225,000% increase in claims again, but if we do, we are better prepared than ever before to work through that.
Great. And Karen, just staying on that rules and regulations piece, I know California looks at that a little differently than Wisconsin, and every state has their own unique rules and regulations, legislative kind of mandates, and just talk to us about what it's like in California to do something similar.
So collaboration with our partners with regards to the regulations is absolutely paramount, and it's essential for the following reasons. One, in terms of the delivery of service, we want to make sure that we're maintaining compliance, with our application and the personalized service that we're delivering. Two is that we want to ensure that we have open communication about AI usage. We want to have transparency. We want to build trust. We also want to maintain confidence of our consumers as well as our regulatory bodies. And so for us in California, I think this is, it's a moving target. I don't think we have it all, set out yet. There's a lot of debate. There's a lot of discussion. And so whatever we're delivering, we're going to need to make sure that we're adjusting to make sure that we're staying compliant with what the regulations are. So we maintain that confidence from our regulatory bodies as well.
Great. And Mayor, similar question for you. How's the city of Dearborn look at these topics?
We had a bigger debate over what to name our chatbot versus the regulatory issues. Having served in the legislative body and now being more in the executive role, my recommendation to legislators is guardrails are important, but don't get so specific that you hinder innovation from actually occurring. And in the way that we view AI, AI is here. Whether you want to block it out of your city, block it out of your level of government or your agency, AI is here. And if you're not using it, you're falling behind, just like any other technology that has come across the table. And so we obviously want to ensure the guardrails are up. We have to give confidence to our council, to our residents, that we're using it responsibly and continually demonstrating effectively via communication about the importance of making these investments and the value that they're getting for the tax dollars that we're expending. I think as long as you do that, it should be a productive conversation. Obviously, there's going to be hiccups along the road, and somebody will see a random article from a random publisher that just talked about here's where AI went wrong, and they'll send it over to you. But that's just one example when it's being used effectively and right each and every single day, thousands of times.
Great. All right, so now we've talked leadership and strategy, how our partners and ecosystems are really important to driving that strategy. Now let's move to the future of AI. And we saw a little bit of the future yesterday in the keynote. I don't know how excited everybody was. Well, I know this group was excited watching the keynote yesterday. But there's so many new things coming out, and it feels like it's almost daily. So new, to your point, Mayor, there's something new coming out, and it's here. So as we're thinking about that, and maybe even tie in your personal use case in this answer too, and see how that comes through in the future. But Mayor, we'll start with you. what can the citizens of Dearborn expect in the next 5 to 10 years as you keep driving towards this kind of artificial intelligent initiative path?
You know, my journey to AI started with a question to Google of, can you help us do traffic studies without hiring a traffic study company? Can you just take your Google Maps data and give it to us? And then they're like, yes. And I was like, well, can you also do, and it went down like 100 questions, which ended up into this really ambitious journey. And I'm still doing that till today. I told them we're building an online permitting system. I said, can AI do the first evaluation of plans submitted by architects or contractors? It's not available today, but how many of you ever constructed a home or have to go through a permitted process in your local neighborhood? It's the most painful process. And so for us, it's can they submit plans? Can AI evaluate those plans based on our code of ordinances and give us an assessment based on the plans you submitted? You're 70% likely to be approved, or these are the parts that we would recommend you change even prior to our official planner to review it. Or can you take the plans that my planners have actually reviewed and learn how they review plans and then train AI to do the same exact thing to augment what they're doing daily? To me, that would be the future of AI, where it goes from just taking in information, spitting back out information, and really becoming task-oriented, where you can assign full roles. I can message my chatbot and say, please pay my taxes before I'm late, and program it to make sure it's a monthly payment. And AI can just execute it without maybe just giving you the link across the website of where it might possibly be done. I think those are the types of technologies that are now emerging, where AI can take this role and conduct it from A to Z without needing any human augmentation as a part of it. This doesn't reduce your workforce in any way. It just makes your workforce more sophisticated, and it makes the whole process more pleasant and more efficient for the end user. In this case, it would be the residents of the city of Dearborn. That's great.
And Karen, I think as we look out across the crowd, there's probably some in the crowd, including myself. Maybe there's a fear of AI taking over my job. Like my leader, Karen, the CEO of Google Public Sector, maybe she says, Gemini can probably do a better job. Let's just build one of those robots and have the robot lead the panel next year instead of Joel, right? Like that is a true thought in some people's minds. So how are you coming to terms with that within your agency at Covered California?
So this is something that you need to obviously acknowledge the concerns first, and then the next is to make sure that you're communicating, that is to augment human potential, not diminish it. And so it's important that you're communicating with your employees so that you get broad adoption. For us at Covered California, we actually did a survey of our employees probably 5 months ago. And so I think education is going to be a key element. And the reason for that is because individuals are in different places in terms of their knowledge and their experience with AI. So it's really important that you can, continuously provide education. And I know that our information technology team has made themselves available to all of our divisions, to the employees. We stood up a secured chat GPT, and we asked employees what they think about it. We have, a disclaimer that they have to click on every time that they use it to make sure that, they're not putting up any kind of personal confidential information into the chat GPT. But the other thing is that we also offer in that section is here's some links to some additional training videos that perhaps if you have questions, you can answer this. So we've also had all staff meetings at our monthly all staff meetings. We've communicated this. So it's all about, we want our employees to be along on this transformational journey, and we want them to be part of it. And we also are making sure we have a strong organizational change management component to it, because AI is a complement to the workforce. It's sort of like having dynamic assistants, 1,000 interns at your disposal. And so I think by us introducing AI tools slowly, gradually, we're taking kind of a crawl, walk, run kind of approach. And I think by standing up some of the tools and gaining acceptance, from our employees, we'll see a lot more use cases and eventually be able to branch out externally.
That's great. And I think we all could use a little bit of extra help with our email inboxes. So all of the tools that we saw yesterday during the keynote, I think is, to your point, it's just this enhancement and accelerator versus a replacement.
Exactly.
That's great. Amy, so I know you're playing an important role for the governor in the state on workforce and AI. Can you talk to the group about what you're doing for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So after our very successful initial ventures in having public and private AI partnerships with Google and Judy, we really wanted to continue to lead the way in the state of Wisconsin in terms of just how we are thinking about AI, how we are preparing our workforce and our businesses. So the governor has created the Wisconsin Artificial Intelligence and Workforce Development Task Force, of which I chair, and we have brought together really global leaders. There are representatives from Google on that task force, also educational leaders, private sector leaders, local government leaders, and we have come together and are working through recommendations for our governor about what type of policies we should be adopting and where we should be investing in the state of Wisconsin to really be able to harness the power of AI and make sure that we are ready, because as we've heard today, it's here, it's already in use, but are our K through 12 students, are they prepared to use it? Are businesses, especially small and medium businesses, prepared to really take some capital investments and adopt this technology, or do we need to provide tax incentives to ensure that they are moving full speed ahead? So we are really looking at a lot of this work with an equity lens as well. You probably all have heard that most folks are referring to this present time as the fourth industrial revolution because of how much AI is projected to impact virtually every occupation, every industry. And so the task force has looked at, making sure that we are focused on bringing everyone in Wisconsin along. Prior industrial revolutions have created things like the digital divide and the haves and have-nots, and we are convinced that there is a seat at the table of prosperity for everybody in our state who wants to be there, and that we can use AI to bridge gaps that we've previously had to marginalized groups and populations and bring everyone along. So we are looking at policy recommendations that way, and we're just really excited, again, about the future of this and what it means for the great state of Wisconsin.